there and welcome to the sew along for the Kayla. So there's a couple of different options you can sew this garment. Today I'm sewing in a French terry with approximately 30% stretch horizontally. It might not even be that, it's more like a 25, so it's a minimal stretch, and this has come out fine, so that will be a bit of a guide. But generally 30% or better horizontally would be the best fabric to use for this sort of pattern, or just a sweater knit or a hatchie or something like that. So it is a knit fabric. I'm patterning it, or I patterned it with 6mm 1/4 inch seam allowances. So when you're ready, set your overlocker up with 4 threads of colour that match your fabric, and set the width to 6mm 1/4 inch. And when we overlock, we're going to overlock on the raw edge. There's no need to cut any seam allowances or anything off. You're going to need to find a way of sewing the hems. If you're using a plain machine, make sure you have a ball needle in it and that you lengthen the stitch length from normal. Remember to test stitch your tensions on spare fabric before you start. Don't forget to, if you are using a domestic sewing machine, make sure you have the correct stitch chosen for your fabric type. So generally a lightning stitch or a zigzag would be fine. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Just jump over the steps that you might not need. So if you're not using the twist knot front, just jump over this section and continue on with the video. I'll make sure that I include all the options within the video. So here is my front piece, and this is the top, and I've got it facing, so here is the top and here is the bottom. So I'll start by sewing the twist knot in. Regardless of whether you're sewing just the plain sweater front or the twist knot front, you do need to start by overlocking this top edge. So starting here, we're going to overlock to secure that edge to stop it from fraying. So you need to do this for whichever front that you're working with. So if you're doing the plain front, jump over the rest of this part of the video. If you're doing the twist knot, keep watching. So let's come to this hem area here, and you'll see that there's this triangular curve cut out of it. Now on this side we have a notch here and a notch here, and on this side we have a single notch here. So that is going to show us our sewing positions. So now you need to find this lower front piece like this. On one of the sides you will find a notch here and a notch here, and on the other side you'll find a notch here. We want the side with the 2 notches on it. So what you need to do is make sure we have right sides together, and we want to match those 2 notches to the lower hem here. So what we're going to do is overlock from the hem area here up. Now you'll see up here that you're going to run out. That's fine. What we're going to do is just go as far as you can, making sure you don't stretch it. Making sure you match those edges to the curve. Now when you run out of fabric, just keep overlocking on the single layer for around about another inch or 2. So that's about another 5 centimetres. Now that's not essential, but you'll see why down the track. This is where it's going to be open to allow our knot to form. So you can actually leave it raw because the knit won't unravel, but if you're a bit of a stickler and like it tidy, that's a good thing to do. Alright, so that is what we should have now at the hemline there. The next thing we need to do is the hemline. across this piece here. So if you have access to a cover stitch machine, go ahead and cover stitch that. I'm just going to, or you could use a twin needle on a domestic machine. I'm just going to use an overlocked edge and a double line of stitching. So if you turn that hem up at the notches, the hem is 2 centimeters, which is 3/4 of an inch, and I found it easier to press it first. Of course, if you're using a cover stitcher, you'll find this really straightforward. And I'm just going to run the stitches for the hemline there. Okay, so this is where we're at with the front. Now, we're going to work over here, the lower left. What we're going to do is pick up this piece here at the bottom, so on the side, and bring it up the side seam until you see the notch here. So you want the 6mm point, so 1/4 of an inch in from the edge here, to sit on top of that notch there. And we're going to sew from just above here all the way down, and we're going to stop and run off at the notches at the fold. So we want to leave an area to turn. So when you see this notch here, it doesn't matter if you're before it or after it, and it's going to depend on your fabric type too, but we need to leave a gap here. So we'll just run your machine on like that. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so you're going to have this little bit here that you're going to need to be able to pass this through. Okay, so what we need to do is take this extension piece here and pass it through that hole from the front to the back. So I find the easiest way is just to put your hand through from the back and then pass that through like so. And this is how we create our knot. Alright, just pull it through like that. Alright, so now what we need to do is come to the side here. And you have to make sure you haven't twisted it too much. So we are going to right sides together, sew this extension piece on like that. So we've pulled it through, our hem's at the bottom. So you just need to make sure that the hem is at the bottom going up and the bottom coming down, and it's straight through, it's not twisted. And then just come to this piece here. So we're looking for the extension with a small notch, and match that right sides together and match that notch together there. And that's what we're going to overlock next. And with this, you're only going to be able to go some of the way. So just overlock as far as you can to secure that without cutting off any fabric that you're not supposed to sew. You can always tweak this later. Like that. Okay, so we come back round. We do a bit of rearranging, and there is our hem twist. Right, so now I'm going to work on the shoulder strap. If you don't want a shoulder strap, just skip over this part. So here is our shoulder strap. Fold it right sides together and overlock this long edge. And turn it through so it is wrong sides together. Now go to your iron and press that piece so that seam is sitting right on the outside edge. Okay, pop that piece away somewhere safe and we'll start work on the back. And we're going to stitch the back hemline exactly the same we did for the front. We're going to use a 2 centimetre, 3/4 of an inch hem allowance. Now to make it easier on myself down the track, what I've done is I've very lightly pressed in a 3 centimetre hem allowance here. So my notch positions show me the 3 centimetre amount, which is 1 3/16 of an inch. And what I did was I turned it at the notch positions and pressed it down, just very lightly, just because it'll make life a little bit easier down the track. So when you've got your back at the top, place that right side up, place your front right side down, and we're going to sew the shoulders. Okay, I'm going to start on this side here. So match those positions like this. Now what I'm going to do is at the notch position here, I'm going to fold both of those top edges towards the front. So I'm going to turn the front back on itself, which is easy because I've lightly pressed a seam, and I want to wrap the back one over the top, making sure that the notches are exactly on top of each other and it's all sitting nicely. So we want to just do this. So I'm going to start overlocking from that fold. So what this does is when we go to finish this off, it just gives us a lovely smooth transition at the neck edge here. But don't worry about that too much for now. If you have a strap, we're going to put it in now at the notch position. Now you should be able to see the notch position through your overlocking here. You can either choose to overlock that into place or you can do it on the plain sewer. So I'm going to do this on the plain sewer at the same time as I do the other shoulder. So here is my neck edge here, and you'll see there's a notch here that I asked you to press just a really light 3 centimetre seam into. So 3 centimetres was 1 3/16 of an inch. As you come along, you'll see a drill mark. So that drill mark is designed to show us where we want to stop for the shoulder to be. So what you want to do is make sure those 2 drill marks are directly on top of each other, and we're going to sew from the notch towards that drill mark but we want to sew past it. Continue the line 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch. So this is what gives us the off the shoulder drop. Now, this is a really easy way of adjusting how much off the shoulder you want. Try it on if you're not using the strap version, and you can, if you want less off the shoulder, just continue the line. If it's too much, the reverse goes, so you can open it up or close it up to suit. If you're sewing the strap version, take your strap, and what we want to do is the folded edge is the edge that goes closest to the neckline, and the sewn edge is the edge closest to the armhole. So find the notch here, and that notch matches to the notch in the center there. So all we need to do is stitch that together. What I'm going to do is tuck that overlocking up in and stitch that down. Now, as I said, you could overlock that in at the same time that you overlock the edge here. It's entirely up to you. And do the same on the other side, so match the other side and stitch that in. I mean, it certainly would be tidier if you overlocked it all in at the same time. My thoughts on this are that I really like the idea of not having a strap, and then I realised that the bra strap issue, I'd have to keep wearing a bustier or a shirred top or a boob tube underneath this. So I put this in as an afterthought, and I thought, well, that's actually quite a good idea, because if you do have the means to keep wearing a boob tube or a nice lacy bralette underneath it, but you change your mind down the track, this is an easy way to add it. Alright, okay, so now what we need to do is secure the upper edge. So go to your iron and repress those seams in so they're all nice and flat and easy to sew. If you've just done a light press and you think you can cope, that's fine. So what we're going to do is sew through the line of overlocking. Now I'm going to do it from the right side because I can. Perfectly acceptable to sew it from the wrong side if you want to. It is patterned for 3 centimetres, 1 3/16 of an inch, but you could always sew it at 2, it won't make a difference. As long as where you sew is going to be parallel to this edge. You want a nice straight row of stitching. And as you can tell, we've just secured our strap down like that. So stop with your needle down when you reach the other shoulder, lift, turn and pivot, and just rearrange your work. And then stitch back. And you want to go all the way to the armhole edge. Now we want to secure the top of the strap, so come back to the strap and just edge stitch down from the one side to the other. And then do it on the other side. and then go and give that a really good press and try it on. So now let's sew our sleeves into the armhole. So here is our armhole. Take one of your sleeves and place it right side together to the armhole. We're going to make sure that the beginning point matches, that the notch in the center of the sleeve matches to the seam here, and that the other side of the sleeve matches into the armhole. So just overlock that together. Now go ahead and repeat that for the other armhole. Now we're going to sew the underarm and the side seams. To sew the underarm and the side seams, it's going to be a little bit tricky down the hemline because we've already sewn our hems in, and we had to already sew our hems in because of the twist knot. Now I haven't found an easier, nicer way of doing this except for maybe overlocking that and doing the hem afterwards. But then you get all this bulk to have to work with up here. So the best we can do now is overlock the side seam. Now if you overlock it from the hem to the wrist, which I don't normally do, you'll find you can get a better starting point here, just to make sure it's absolutely on top of each other. When you reach the underarm, just make sure those seams sit on top of each other. Now when we do the other side, make sure you do the other side the same way, so sew from the hem up. We always need to be a bit careful about seam direction. You generally only sew garments in one direction, so you choose either to sew from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top, just to get the fabric working the same way together. Now as you sew up the side that we've done the twist on, you'll find there's notches to match. Now you may need to do a little bit of adjustment. What happens is because of the angle, the fabric may stretch a little. It's sort of to do a bit with stretch and a bit with bias. Just make sure the notches all match. So the notch position here shows us that join here. And the seam needs to face towards the hem. And then the next notch position you'll come to will be the very join under the arm. Well, it's not quite, it's about 3 centimetres away from under the arm. And you may need to have to ease that in a little bit as well due to the stretch, the way we cut it. And then make sure the underarm seams match. Okay, so if you're sewing the plain hem version, now's your time to stitch your hems into place on your sleeves. Go ahead and do that however you want. If you're doing the cuff version, take a cuff piece and fold it so that there is a notch on the fold at the top and the bottom, and then overlock the seam here together. And then we want to turn this back on itself to create a cuff, like so. And do the same thing for the other cuff piece. Fold so the notch is at the fold. So take your garment, and here is the sleeve hem area, and place the cuff inside. We want to match all 3 seams on one side, and then we want to match all 3 notches on the other, and overlock those layers together. Don't start on the seam, it's too bulky. Start somewhere else. You'll need to stretch this to fit. And then repeat that on the other side. So the last thing we need to do is tidy up where we join these hems together. Trim your overlocking thread back to maybe 1 inch, which is 2 or 3 centimeters, and then bring it round to the back, which is the side without a knot, and tuck it in between the seam and the garment like so. Now you can either choose, and I like to sew it from the front because that way I can make sure it's all hidden. I'm just going to run a couple of stitches just in from the edge. Just to hold that down and give a nice transition. Of course you can secure that overlocking thread how you like, it's up to you. And then just go ahead and do that on the other side. So you can figure out other ways of sewing this garment. You certainly can sew the hem all in one, but what it means is you have to just sew up the side seam first, and you're dealing with all these floppy layers before you finish off the twist. And until you sew the garment you won't understand what I'm talking about. But this is not a terrible alternative, and you still get a really nice looking finish. So it just helps push the seams towards the back as well. So that's it, we've finished. This is a quick sew for a maximum result with this knot hem. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, join my Facebook pattern discussion group, and I love seeing the garments that you've made, so thanks for posting all of those up. I hope to see you again soon, and please enjoy.